Hi, I'm Siobhan, Gallery Coordinator at Gertrude Contemporary. I'm here today with Gertrude Studio Artist Darcey Arnold, and we're going to talk about her practice and the VCE Art framework of personal. So the personal framework is used to reveal how artworks can reflect an artist's personal feelings, thinking, circumstances, and experiences, and how the viewer's interpretation of the work is informed by their own experiences. So we're going to look at Darcey's body of work, Me Say Edit B, which is coming up soon to be shown at Reading Room in the Nicholson Building in Melbourne. And we'll focus on a couple of key artworks, Jenny Ed It's, We Be Ed It, and Jenny by the Sea. So Darcey, please tell me about you and your practice.
Hi, so I'm a Melbourne artist and I work from Gertrude Contemporary Studios. I went to the VCA and did a drawing degree in fine arts, and then I went on to do an honours at Monash University. And I primarily worked in drawing for a long time, for about 10 years, and then switched to painting, which has been in the last few years. And drawing, I guess, is still the foundation for all of my work, but I found a freedom in painting recently that's been really exciting, and which has sort of led into the change in my work, moving more into the personal as of late.
And what relationship does the artwork have to your life and your experiences?
It's a very close relationship. I guess I make very personal work now, which I've been doing for the last few years, since 2017. I'm making works which tie into my role as a carer for my mother, who has an acquired brain injury. I've been her carer since 2004, which is when I was at art school, but it's only been recently that I've started to make work speaking about that experience, which has been really difficult but also very rewarding. And I think there's a certain amount of vulnerability and honesty that people relate to and connect to, which is why it's been a success recently to talk about that, even though, yeah, it is difficult.
What is the visual evidence in the artwork that points to this experience that you've had caring for your mother, Jennifer?
The visual evidence, I guess, would be my source material. So I appropriate my mother's written word and put it into paintings. However, if you weren't sure of the backstory, I don't think that's explicit. It's through tools like personal essays and writing that go along with the artwork that I've added that further information. So if people want to know more about the works, they can take that extra step and delve deeper into the story. Because I do feel it's important for the works to be broad and be appreciated on a few different levels, or have a few different entrances to the work, so it's not tied into one expression.
What's the specific process that you follow in creating and conceiving the works? You said that you appropriate some source material from your mother.
Yeah. That's been sort of like the starting point for all these new works, is this written material that I have and that we've been collecting for a long time, since so she had her acquired brain injury in 2004, and then we've collected her writing since that, and she was a teacher, and so writing is very important to her and language is very important to her, and yeah, so I appropriate her written work, but also drawings that she does in art therapy and things, like, for example, the Jenny by the Sea. That work is originally a painting that she did in art therapy, and then 10 years later, I've taken that as a base and made it my own by changing the colours and giving it the context of the title. And I titled it Jenny by the Sea because she grew up by the sea, and the colours are sort of beach themed. And it's also, I've sort of taken a bit of a visual language of a painter that I love, who's also a Melbourne painter, Robert Rooney, and tied them all in together.
And so by taking your mother's sort of drawings and corrections as source material, do you see your mother as a collaborator in this process?
Yeah, that's an interesting question that I get asked a little bit when you're appropriating things. I don't see her as a collaborator. I feel like it's very much my work, and that is for two reasons. One, because I guess she's my mum and I want to, do my own thing and have my own voice. And secondly, because she has an acquired brain injury, there becomes an issue of consent when, particularly in her situation, she's only got seconds and minutes of memory. So you could have a conversation, or I do have these conversations where I say, I'm making this work, and I've taken inspiration from your writing, and she'll get excited about that, but that information isn't retained. So it's very much my own work appropriating the things around me. And at the moment it is my mum's labour. So my labour and her labour interwoven.
Do you think that your work is reflective of any larger sort of personal beliefs or cares?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, like I just said, like with labour, I think it's definitely talking about that. Yeah, and the importance of her work and what she's taught me and our relationship. And I guess they're all really grand themes in that way. And also the visibility of disability, because I think she's fascinating, and so I feel like to share that story is really important, because a lot of times if you've got quite a severe disability, you're not always in the public. You don't, like, having someone to share your story can be really important and really good for a community, things like that.
Yeah, definitely. And your mother has an ABI, acquired brain injury, and so do you think as well that you're trying to understand cognition or address the theme of how we as individuals understand cognition?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I'm always trying to, like I'm cracking a code or something like that, especially when I work with her language. Because of her memory loss, she's sort of, she mixes language around a lot. Like she mixes in French and English. And as I'm painting her words, it sort of feels like I'm trying to, crack this code to get a deeper understanding of how her brain is working, and how that changes. And the language is fluid, and in that way.
And I know that for your exhibition coming up at Reading Room, you've commissioned an essay by Matthew Greaves. So tell me a little bit about Matthew and the text that he's written. So
I commissioned Matthew because he's got a background, he's got an artistic practice, and then he's gone into psychology, a psychology degree. So he is thinking a lot about the brain. And so I wanted to get his viewpoint on the works that use text. And he's written about people with bilingual language, and it's not directly about the work. It doesn't speak directly to the works, but it does give an example of way of thinking about language that I thought was important. So it's just a sort of a little bit of, I guess, of a hint of what the works might be talking about without telling you directly. So still leaving it quite open and broad. And I kind of, when I commissioned him, I had a little bit of in mind of Oliver Sacks's work. If you know him, like The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, that kind of like case study based writing, which was an inspiration for both of us.
So there's a nice relationship between the textual and the visual qualities of the work. For example, in your work, We Be Ed It, the text fans out to create a really visually interesting pattern. Was that how Jennifer originally did the text?
No, that's, in that one particularly, it's a good example of the way I've tried to blend my language and Jennifer's language. So I've had, say, her notebook with me, and I've taken pockets of her sentences and then painted them in this sort of painterly gesture way, and using she's written on quite a few post-it notes over the years. So we have, piles and piles of post-it notes. So that's where that little yellow square comes from. There's this sort of, I used it visually as an anchor almost for the fanning text. So it sort of holds the work and then the text fans out, which I think, is a good example of the combination of my my visual language and her written language. And then it's a little bit blurry as well, because I like playing with layers of paint and the white paint covering up some of the text, which in real life it's quite textural, which you can't always see on the screen.
What are the symbols and metaphors you've explored or utilised in your artworks that contribute to the meaning and messages? I'm thinking particularly about the work Journey Ed It's, where the words seem to be erased or rubbed out.
Yeah, so that's tying in again to that textural kind of play, like that painterly play, I guess. Like, I try to be quite playful with the paint and use the text as a base, and then come at it in a visual language way, and push and pull of information with layering, and which I guess would speak to a loss, like you've put down the information there and then you've covered it up in paint, and that could be like sort of, a loss of memory in a really direct way. But I wasn't so much thinking of that as I was making it. It was more for the visual pleasure of it, of playing with the paint, and making it a textual abstract piece, but with that information as a starting point, if that makes sense. Yeah. And to highlight the gestural lines, like that, the red line going through the center, which I thought was a really nice line.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful work, because it has this fogginess about it, but you still do that thing where you try and look at the words, because you identify them as words, and you try and work out what they say, and you try and try and construct meaning for yourself.
Absolutely.
One of the other
speaking it out.
Yeah. One of the other key areas of the personal framework is how the viewer experiences the art and how their background affects the interpretation of the work. And so I thought maybe it might be nice if I share some of my interpretations or memories that I have when I view the work as well. So particularly for me, when I look at your work, I really think about memories I have about learning to read and write. And I found it quite difficult when I was learning to read and write to tell the difference between words that look quite similar, like thought and through and thorough. And so one of my teachers would draw boxes around the letter so that I could see visually the different heights of the word and try and identify the word through the height of the lettering.
Great.
And then the other one that I thought of was playing games like rhyming games like luck, duck, suck, buck, all those sorts of things. And also memories of in primary school learning French, because obviously there's the French language that your mother's drawn on as well.
Yeah, that all ties in so strongly with her text because she was a teacher, so you can see that wordplay coming through, I think. And another game it would be to create acronyms to remember how to spell words, which is what she does a lot still. So that educational side comes through really strongly.
And so did your mother learn French when she was growing up as a student?
She did. Yeah, she did in high school, but none of us really know why it's come through now. Her memory stops at about, I think about the early 70s, so when she was in high school. And because she learned it in high school, I guess that's why it's quite formative now in her memory. But she was never fluent or anything like that. So it is, we don't exactly know why. She holds it in high acclaim, and she loves, the combination of things and the playfulness of it. But yeah, we couldn't tell you exactly why, which is sort of interesting when you read Matthew Greaves's essay about bilingual brains and things like that, and how quite a few people who've had brain injuries will speak a different afterwards, which is an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, I know when people get dementia as well, that they quite often forget the second language that they've learned and revert back to their original language. It's language is very interesting, but thank you for sharing your thoughts and insights and trying to explain not just the language but also some of those visual qualities in the work as well. It's really beautiful.
It's an ongoing process, that's for sure, and making work that's personal, it's enjoyable, and also it has its challenges, but it's great to share.
Thank you.